Welcome to the Nephology podcast. I'm your host, Joe David, and I'm the founder and CEO of Nephos Group. On this podcast, we talk to founders, innovators, disruptors, and entrepreneurs from all across the globe who are building in Web3, technology, and finance. And if that's something that you're interested in, please hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes. Now on to the next episode. Hello everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Nephology podcast. I'm delighted to welcome Georgia, founder of Ecology Media, here today. Georgia, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on down. For those that don't know, I'd love you to explain who you are and what Ecology Media is.
Yes, so my name is Georgia Hanias. I'm the founder of Ecology Media. We're a boutique PR agency based in London, but we've got boots all over the world. Our focus is primarily fintech and Web3, as well as some social impact businesses. And we feel that all these sectors are inextricably linked because, let's face it, crypto is the future of money. We don't know how it's going to transform the sector, but I can assure you that we are heading in that direction. And I'm super excited to play a role in its journey. So we're not there yet, but we're getting very close, and our focus over the next few years is all about finding companies that we believe in, companies that have incredible tech that can really move the dial and create incredible financial services that resonate with everyone. So I set up Ecology Media now about 8 years ago, and prior to that I was one of the founding members of a non-profit organization called Innovate Finance, which was very innovative at the time. It was about 11 years ago that was set up, and it was meant to be an organization that brings together the fintech ecosystem in the UK. There was still a lot of misinformation about what fintech was all about. Very few people understood just how powerful it was as a sector and how much money it was contributing to the economy. So there was very little PR about it, but you had these incredible entrepreneurs from all over the world coming to London and shaping financial services alongside traditional banks. And when I joined Innovate Finance, it was the time that it launched, and it was a very, very exciting opportunity for me to really get stuck into the new world of money. And that fascinated me, not because I'm obsessed with money, quite the opposite. Otherwise, I would have built a massive PR agency. But what I'm obsessed about is creating financial services that are relevant, that support everyone. Because at the moment, there are a lot of flaws in the system. So fintech was meant to solve a lot of the pain points for millions and millions of consumers. And I was just really excited to get on board with that. So I joined Innovate Finance. I was in charge of the partnerships, their global PR, and I was really instrumental in helping the team, because it was a collaborative effort to really put fintech on the map in the UK. And I had the amazing privilege of getting to know some of the biggest names in fintech, names that are now, at least their brands, household names, from TransferWise, now known as Wise, to Monzo Bank, Starling Bank. I love Anne Bowden, the founder. She was incredible. She was just a band apart, as they say in French. Like she wasn't definitely not a tech pro or finance pro. This amazing woman from up north, super smart, came to see us. She was launching a bank, and a few years later, the rest is history.
Crazy, huh?
It is crazy, and even where everything was taking place. So you've got to remember, 11 years ago, there wasn't a lot about fintech, and to actually help set up that organization, help launch it. And everything was taking place in an area called, Canary Wharf, but the workspace was level 39. It was the first fintech ecosystem, or workspace, I should say, not ecosystem, a workspace. And a lot of those big names were working there. So Nick, like the founder of Revolut, was just working on his laptop and, working alongside some other amazing people. And it's interesting to see who succeeded and who didn't.
Yeah.
But It was an amazing opportunity to get to know these incredible entrepreneurs. And off the back of that work that we did at Innovate Finance, after 3 years, I decided I'd spin out because the PR proposition was becoming a bit, I think, too powerful. We weren't a PR agency. We were a non-for-profit. So there were a lot of things we were trying to do, policy work, raising the profiles of these companies, but also trying to lure more investment into the UK. And I was more interested in the narratives. How do we work with companies to tell their stories and elevate them so that people know who they are and they can start using their products and services? So I left and set up Ecology Media, as I said, about 8 years ago, and I haven't looked back. And there is a reason why I'm bringing this background story into our conversation, because crypto came from that. So one of the first clients that we took on was a company called Circle. And back then, when they were members of Innovate Finance, they were a payments company. Basically, you would use it to split the bill and pay your friends through sort of mobile messaging.
And this was like when you were at Innovate
When
Finance?
I was at Innovate Finance.
So this was a long time ago.
Exactly. And I met an extraordinary woman there named Marique Flamand, who's now gone on to become one of the leading female crypto voices, among other voices. I mean, she's very, very passionate about sustainability and human rights, and she's just an incredible person. I absolutely love her. And she was at Circle at that time, and they had a very visionary founder and leader named Jeremy Allaire, who now is probably the most famous, or one of the most famous men in crypto. But he saw the future. He saw the potential of crypto. He was an early adopter of Ethereum, and he changed the fortunes, the direction of Circle. So I think that was probably my first introduction into the world of crypto. And I didn't realize how big Circle is going to become.
Nobody did.
Nobody did. And I had this incredible opportunity to work with Jeremy Allaire on his PR. We were in charge of raising his profile in Europe. And I remember one of the interviews that we did with him was with Matt Wall, who was a technology editor of the BBC at the time. And before I brought him into the room to meet Jeremy Allaire, we were at this like Bijou conference in London. Matt kind of pulled me aside and goes, Georgia, what are we going to talk about? I don't understand crypto. And I remember saying to him, well, there's problems with volatility in crypto. Well, there's this thing called stablecoin that he's going to launch that will solve that problem. And that's really, really easy to understand, right? He goes, okay, so we'll focus on stablecoins. And I had no idea how big USDC was going to be. I didn't realize that stablecoin was going to be probably the most successful DeFi product to come out of the ecosystem. All I knew was that Jeremy believed in it, and it was something that you could wrap your head around. Unlike other DeFi products.
Yeah. It made sense to normal people.
It made sense to normal people. So I think Matt Wall's conversation with Jeremy Allaire, and at that time too, Jeremy was just on the rise. And I remember he was so, not stressed, but he was a man who was super busy. He was trying to put this company on the map. And I remember Jeremy coming into the office and Matt coming into the room where we were going to do the interview, and Jeremy's eating a sandwich. And, he was just, he looked like a scaling founder.
I was going to say like a typical crypto founder,
yes,
I guess.
But a bit more polished than a crypto founder, because I think he had more of a sort of corporate background by then. He has a few more years under his belt. And I didn't realize what a defining moment that was going to be. The fact that we had BBC there, and they did write about stablecoins.
What year was this?
Oh God! Well, when they launched USDC.
Okay. Oh, so literally
that was
the moment
that was
they
the
kind
time.
of
Yes. So we helped to do the PR for that, which was super exciting at that time. I didn't know how big it was going to be. And it really just put things on the map. And I remember a few years later running into Jeremy Allaire at Davos. He had a seat at the top table by then. He was, at the actual event, whereas most of us are relegated to like the side events. I'm not going to lie and say I've ever had the proper pass to get in there. I've always been with the crypto people who are trying to get in, but not quite there yet. And there was an FT event. It was a panel discussion, and there was like free entry. So I managed to get in, and I remember going up to him, and he just looked amazing.
Yeah.
He was like really polished, and I said, God, like, success really suits you.
And it's a proud moment for you as well to really support that person in the early days and believe in that person and the vision they had and to see how they've moved on. So
yes, exactly. He outgrew us pretty quickly, let me tell you. But it was just really nice and a nice short exchange with him, and he was so happy to hear it. So thank you so much. I go, no, it's true. You've done amazing work, and it suited him. He was in control. He's doing amazing work, and obviously the IPO just happened.
Yeah.
So
and that was super successful.
Yes.
I wouldn't say it took people by surprise, maybe, but I think don't think people expected quite the kind of what's the word, reception, or the kind of like demand for it, because it just went through the roof, didn't it? As soon as it launched.
Absolutely, and he's one of the acceptable faces of crypto because he has that real world experience. He clearly had a corporate history and background, and he didn't alienate the institutional players either. He understood what it took to actually legitimize his brand. The product is amazing. He's very smart. He's very articulate. And he won people, on board, and he had a very collaborative approach to the regulators. He did the right things, basically. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that Circle has become such a massive success. And that relationship with Circle brought me closer to Marique Flamand, who I mentioned earlier, and she's gone on to do amazing work. And she was the one that really, really introduced me to the world of Web3 because she brought me into the world of NEAR.
Okay.
And I was with NEAR, the NEAR Foundation, which is the non-for-profit side of the business and the money allocators for the incredible projects that they've backed over the years. And it really introduced me to the world of Web3. I didn't really quite understand it until I had a nice lunch with Marique, and she said, "You're coming with me. We're going to tell the world all about Web3." And what I loved the most about our relationship there, but also about Web3, was that I saw the opportunity brought to emerging markets or the global south. I don't know the terminology that people are using, but basically the billions of people that are not living in Western Europe and North America. Yeah. And that's where the success of Web3 truly, is happening. I mean, you've got stable coins. There's billions of it in circulation. And I always say to people, you can judge one's privilege by asking them how they feel about crypto. Most people in Western Europe and North America would say, "Oh, I don't use it. It's for criminals, blah, blah, blah." Okay, fine.
Don't need it.
They don't need it. The current existing financial model works just fine for them. But you go further south, and it's a lifeline for people in Kenya, in Brazil, in Argentina. Even Turkey apparently is the fourth crypto nation in the world. And that really excites me. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We're working with a company that powering payments in, like you say, in places like Kenya and South Africa and, all these countries that they export a significant amount of what they do, but they've got no control or sight over payment processing or things like that. And to be able to use stable coins to see instantly where the money's gone, whether it's come in, and the cost reduction in that is amazing. And they're, like you say, Western firms like ours can accept crypto or whatever, and it's fine, and it makes not a huge amount of difference versus the fiat currency that we receive either. But for those firms, it is game changing.
It's a game changer, absolutely. In fact, one of our clients are an African crypto company, and they only pay us in Tether because there's IBAN discrimination. They find it really difficult to send money over to Western Europe.
A lot of them have currency controls. We got business in South Africa, and there's currency controls there.
Exactly.
So it's very difficult to move money in and out of the country.
Exactly, and it's instant. It's like, "Oh, I paid you," and they'll check Coinbase. I go, "Oh."
Exactly. And it's there. Yeah. But also, you can again, if I pay you and I send you the transaction hash, you can see what's happened. It's not like I send you a bank confirmation letter which shows you that I've made the payment, but it doesn't show you where it is. It doesn't show you when it's going to be credited in reality. It's not really any use to anyone. Whereas if I send you a transaction hash, I can see exactly, is it completed, has it not, where is it, which wallet did it go to, all those different bits and pieces. So it's so much easier.
It is so much easier. And I always tell people that, and you're calling out your privilege when you dismiss it that way. People, like, they're oppressed. They're tyranny of circumstance. They have no choice. And to be able to give people millions, can I say even billions of people, the ability to move money freely around, like to pay one another. They're not all criminals. Some of them just trying to pay people and receive
maybe
their
family, it may
income,
be whatever. And I think the other thing you mentioned there, like millions or billions, I think the amount of people that this benefits, if you take away I think there's still benefit to Western, business owners or individuals like us, but let's assume that there isn't for a second. I still think that the kind of oppressed, the people that can't, unbanked, all that sort of stuff, there's more of them in the world than there is of us, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So even if it doesn't help us and it helps all of them, that's still a good thing.
Exactly.
So I totally agree. So how does your approach then differ from, if you're working with a crypto founder or crypto project in some way? Like, do you have to change your kind of approach on how you do PR and not so much, I know you're not a marketing agency, but how you approach that kind of communication PR side of things? Is it different to maybe what you did in fintech or anything different to that?
Yes, it is very different. I found that fintech, because a lot of the fintech founders, some of them are young, but overall, most of them had a few years experience. And the successful fintech saw a gap in the market. They either lost their jobs during the financial crash, and they had a few years under their belt, had worked for financial institutions, and they said, okay, this was a problem, I'm going to fix it. And they all did insanely well. Or they were young, but again, they understood that there was something that they could offer to a certain demographic, like Monzo, for example, that really appealed to a younger generation. Even the colors that they used, the cards. Yeah. Even how, they presented the cards. I just thought that was brilliant. They understood their audience. And there was an element of professionalism between the PRs and the people leading the companies. They saw the value of marketing. Transfer-wise, even though I didn't formally work with them as a PR agency, they were one of the founding members of Innovate Finance. So we got to know the co-founders, and they spent a fortune on marketing and PR. They understood that you needed to get your brand out there. And there was no convincing them. They knew from day one that's what they needed to do. In crypto, I find that the relationships that I have with a lot of the founders or the people I'm working with are more personal. It's like a Slack, it's like a WhatsApp relationship. I know when they're happy, when they're sad. And I feel like I'm an insider-outsider. So a lot of the relationships, when I sign up to work with some of these people, and I don't want to name everybody, but a lot of them are whales, so the billionaires, or people who are very much at the heart of what's happening in the sector. They want a very hands-on approach to PR. So you've got to be very agile. You've got to be an insider-outsider. So even though I'm running my PR agency, I am sort of the primary PR, and I'm working very, very closely with their team. And there's not necessarily a 9-to-5 relationship. I'll get a message at 10 o'clock because they're in the West Coast, whatever, and I have to address it. And to be honest with you, I don't mind it on the whole because it's so exciting.
Yeah.
And it really does invigorate me. Sometimes it can be challenging because I feel it's chaotic. Things are moving very quickly.
I was just going to say, I imagine it is so fast-paced.
It is. It's very, and a lot of these businesses, the founders are still at the helm of the company. So it's passion, it's their baby, and they feel everything. And some of the most successful entrepreneurs I've worked with also have the thinnest skin. So they get upset if a journalist writes something a certain way. And, you've got to deal with that. But I don't work with anyone I don't like.
Yeah, okay.
And even though they might be complex characters, I learn a lot from them. And I always say,
And you've got respect.
I have a lot of respect for them, and it's a privilege. I got to
Mm.
remember, I'm a small town girl from
Yeah.
Nova Scotia,
Yeah.
and I've been given an opportunity to work with the most brilliant people on the face of this earth.
Yeah. And when you put it like that,
It's
it
such
is
an
a
honor.
privilege. Yeah.
It's an honor to be the dumbest person in the room at all times because I'm always learning. I'm never bored.
Yeah.
And yes, I always remember that privilege. And there's a lot of really interesting things happening in the sector, as we were mentioning before we started officially the podcast.
Yeah.
It's still a very young led sector.
Yeah.
So they're growing up, they're learning,
Yeah.
and I think there's been a lot of maturity.
I was literally just going to say that. I think the maturity has come on leaps and bounds over the last few years. You know, when we first got into it, it was very much kids in their bedrooms type
Exactly.
attitude. It's now very much like real professionals, you know, doing, you know, creating some amazing things. And I think that maturity is key.
It is very key. And that can only come with time, trial and error. And the best tech will win.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing the same faces doing amazing work. But there's still a lot of challenges in the sector. The language is very alienating. Trying to explain to someone who's not in the sector what multi-chain is.
Onboarding is quite difficult. You know, if you need a wallet or
it's still
you know,
sticky.
those things are still challenging if you don't know what you're doing. I agree. I think it's an area that part needs to improve. You know, that kind of ease of use, that user interface, that sort of stuff. It really does need to improve. I mean, you have good companies like Coinbase, for example, where you know, very safe and secure, kind of, you know, IPO'd in the US, or you know, have to go through kind of rigorous. You know, it doesn't mean they're guaranteed, but
I'm a bit upset with Coinbase, though. I
'cause of
have
their
to
advert?
say, no,
Oh.
because the fees are so high.
well, I was going to say that.
It's more expensive than traditional finance now
Yeah.
to get your money out into your bank. So I know that you can. I think there's a subscription or something I've got to sign up
Is
to.
there?
To lower the fee, but I'm
Okay.
getting pretty upset about the transaction fee to take my money out of Coinbase just to put it, because in the UK, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't get any of my crypto deposited into my business accounts yet. It has to go from Coinbase
So
to
Revolut
personal.
do it now?
Yeah, Revolut do it now. Revolut, I got shut out. I think it's an error on Revolut's part, but for some reason I can't access my Revolut account. I'm sounding really dodgy. I'm not. I'm the most boring person honestly, in crypto. But
yeah, no. Let's talk about that after, because I know some people at Revolut quite well.
thank you.
But yeah, so I agree with you. And actually, we've got one of our team who he wasn't in crypto. He's in our non kind of crypto side of the business. He wasn't in crypto when he came. Obviously, joined us and started hearing all about crypto all day, every day. And he was like, I'm keen to get into this. So I said, well, look, first instance, just sign up with Coinbase. Like, yeah, super simple. Just sign up with Coinbase, start buying a little bit of crypto. But as you said, he was like, it's really expensive, you know. So we'd send him his salary, and then he would use some of that to buy. So in the end, he said, you know what? When you've worked out my salary, can you send X to my bank account? And just send me X in Bitcoin or Solana or whatever to my wallet. Because it was so much cheaper for him to do it that way. So I agree with you. You know, this is the issue when you get more corporate, if you like, so where Coinbase are at the moment, I guess the fees start to...
Yes, they're going to have to drop it once more people start using it. But you can stake it at a very high interest rate too. So
again, yeah. There's definitely ways to mitigate those fees, but I agree, it needs to be a much cheaper. You can't have a more expensive than a fiat kind of on ramping.
Exactly.
It just doesn't make sense, right?
Exactly.
I thought you were going to say that when you said you were upset with Coinbase about their wonderful advert that they've brought out recently about the UK.
No comment.
As a PR person, I'm sure you've seen that around.
Yes, I have.
And that I saw Brian Armstrong tweeted that something like if you block something from being published, it usually means that it's true. So yeah, for those that haven't seen, maybe check out that Coinbase advert.
Absolutely.
So I get, like, you know, as crypto companies, like you mentioned, you know, founders are often very passionate about the project. They're often very techy. they really understand the product they're building, but they very often, and we find this as well, don't understand anything outside of that. And that's not being critical, because they're much smarter than I am. And, you know, I'd love to be able to have the minds of some of these people, but they haven't necessarily run a business or worked in marketing or PR or, you know, accounting and things. So it's unfair for us to expect them to. So what would you say are some of the kind of key areas, if you like, that, you know, startup crypto founders maybe miss, and maybe some kind of like, you know, things that they could be thinking about as they're building their brand and their business?
I think simplicity is key. So what they're doing is very, very complicated, but they've got to really, really hone in on their elevator pitch. And they've got to be able to explain what they do to a 5-year-old. I always say that. And you've got to understand your audience. Who are you building this tech for? Is there a problem you're trying to solve? Or have you built a technology and you're trying to find something you can use it, you know, for? So that is the most difficult thing.
Yeah.
It's like that elevator pitch. And you can spend hours, days with the marketeers of trying to hone in on that one sentence and understanding what sets you apart from everyone else. Because the journalists, they're not that many. I read a really, really depressing statistic that for every one journalist, there are 5 PRs chasing them. I mean, so the work is insanely hard. You could be working with some, you know, one of the most famous crypto people, but you still can't get a hold of the journalist. You know, it's like, so their time is dear. There is a lot of chasing going on. So to make it easier to just pierce and cut through that noise, you've got to really hone in on that elevator pitch. And I think that that's where a lot of crypto companies fail. They just aren't able to articulate and to explain what they do to the mass audience, the global audience that they are usually trying to reach. They talk about mass adoption of Web3. I'm on board. I'd love to see that happen. I see the advantages of Web3, but you're not explaining it very well. And also, we haven't convinced the masses that what we've done in Web3 so far is better than their experience in Web2.
Yeah.
Web2 has done a really brilliant job. You download an app, it looks great. You can go ahead from day one to make a purchase and interact with that company and its services. But Web3 is a little bit clunky.
Yeah.
And so it's their messaging.
Yeah.
So I just feel that, and then that's a challenge. I understand the technology, how it works is very complex, but the messaging shouldn't be. What is the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And why should we care?
Yeah. And as a founder, you should know that. You should know the problem you're solving. Now, you may not be able to articulate it in the most kind of user-friendly way, but then that's where like marketing or potentially PR and, you know, those things come into play to help you really articulate what the problem is you're solving and why they should trust you to solve that problem. And you're right, it's unreasonable to expect the masses to buy into something that you can't explain and tell them why they should, you know. So I think that's a really key message, is to get that. I'm going back to the journalist piece, because I've heard that from somebody. Our marketing lead, Amy, in the business, she used to work in PR.
Right.
And so she was saying that like getting access to journalists now, like you just said, is like super, super difficult.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's part of like where the kind of digital age is now, that things are, I don't know, more kind of online and accessible, and therefore there's less kind of journalists looking for stories like they were in the past? Or do you think there's just loads of PR agencies that have popped up, or maybe a mixture?
Yes, so there's a combination of factors. Definitely more PRs and journalists at the moment. A lot of companies in the crypto space. It's very crowded, and I'm sure in the next few years we're going to see massive consolidation, like what happened in the fintech space and the .com era, et cetera, et cetera. So that will happen as well in DeFi. But also, a lot of people aren't supporting these media outlets. So you've got to pay for content. I've come to that conclusion. I was devastated when TechCrunch, they wound up their operations in Europe. I love Mike Butcher. TechCrunch helped so many of our companies get on the map, get the investment to then exit, right? I mean, I was so shocked about that. And there's plenty of other other amazing companies, media outlets that have folded since then. So I think we need to pay for content. We've got to respect the journalists. As a former journalist as well myself, I've got so much respect for good quality journalism. We've got to pay for it. Enough of this, free content, because journalists aren't being compensated for their hard work. They're disenfranchised, and they're probably disconnected and fed up as well. And you've got PRs that are earning 3, 4, 5 times as much as they are.
Yeah.
And it's like the symbiotic relationship. They need one another.
Yeah.
But they're being inundated with pitches, like hundreds and hundreds of pitches a day.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's a little bit like, when the kind of streaming kind of stuff came into play, more illegal streaming before then, the Spotify's and whatnot,
exactly.
Made it a paid for solution. How can you expect musicians to create the greatest music in the world if you're not willing to pay for it?
Exactly. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
Music used to be free. Now we accept. We need to have a subscription.
Yeah.
So we've got to be really creative about media as well. So I pay for Bloomberg. I pay for Fortune. I pay for the FT. I value the content. And I pay for BBC through my, my annual sort of subscription or license, whatever they call it here. So I think people are willing to pay. We just got to figure out what the price points are. I like the idea of micropayments. If there's an article I want to read, I want to pay 50p.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe it's not economically viable.
I get that actually, because I'm the same. There are some, because I'm the same. I pay for Bloomberg myself, and because I value the content, like you say, that I get from it. But what's interesting is, like you say, sometimes I see an article from, I don't know, New York Times or Wall Street Journal or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, I'd quite like to read that.
Exactly.
But you can't read it because it's paywalled. But I don't want a subscription because I don't necessarily read it all the time. But it's like you say, I wouldn't mind paying, X amount for, small kind of amount to read that particular article. And I wonder how much, because there'll be a lot of people like me that will see an article, will click it to read it, and then it'll be behind a paywall, and then they'll go, okay, move on. So they won't read it. So they get nothing. Like, not very many people, I don't think, would go, oh, okay, I'll just subscribe to the Wall Street Journal.
Exactly.
Or, they'll just move on. And it might be the case that they start reading those individual articles, and then they go, actually, this is really good content. I'll now subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. So I agree with you. That's a really interesting...
I don't know why. I think it might... The reason why they don't do it is because once you've paid for the content, then you can PDF it and share it with other people. Maybe it dilutes the brand. I don't know. But
maybe, but you could do that. I could do that with a Bloomberg article that I pay for the subscription for, and I could pay for one subscription and send it to 20 people if I wanted. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's the same kind of concept. But yeah, there must be something. There must be a reason why they don't do it. Either that, or there's a business model that nobody's thought of yet.
Exactly. And interestingly, with crypto, what I found is that it was all about democratizing access to services, making things better for everyone. But what I found is that there's a lot of pay for play now in crypto with the media. So I will approach a journalist. Let's say, okay, yes, well, you've got to pay in order for this like press release or this announcement to appear on a website, which undermines the integrity, not just of the media outlet, but also your company. I mean, this should be earned. We shouldn't be paying for content. And I worry about those outside of the sector. So if everything is pay for play, they're going to read an article and think, oh, that's a really good investment. And they are not crypto savvy, and they put all their money into one token because they read this article that was paid for.
Yeah, I know a couple of media outlets I'm thinking of right now that you have to pay fairly decent. And it also means that a well-funded, not necessarily great project gets more media coverage because they can afford it over a really, really good project that's less well-funded.
Exactly.
And it's a little bit like, Twitter and, people being paid to shill projects, as it were. And, and there's no value at all in that.
No, it's awful. And it also takes... all the amazing work that we're trying to do with the DeFi sector just takes us back to the start. I mean, when we're trying to legitimize what we're doing, and then you've got all of these pay-for-play content creators and, media outlets that want money. And I get it. They want to survive. And some of the content they do is absolutely brilliant. But why not just put everything behind a paywall? We've got to do it that way and earn it.
There was, I don't know which... is it mirror.xyz or something like that? Was like it was like a crypto kind of, a bit like Medium, but for
Okay.
crypto, like a
Right.
blogging kind of.
Okay.
But it was like you had to pay for stuff, or you like had to, what's the word? Kind of like contribute to the
Mm-hmm.
author, or
Right.
and I was working with a company once, and it was in the podcast world, and they were kind of like, you put your podcast on their platform, and then people would, you'd basically, they would create an NFT version, so a tokenized version of it. Then people would like contribute to, so if they wanted to download and listen to it, they would contribute, a few cents or whatever. So it was that kind of like, the more people liked it, the more people played it, the more,
Mm-hmm.
you got paid for it, rather than just paying for it to be number one on, you can pay, for something to be number one on Amazon. So you could write a book and pay Amazon, and they'll put it
Yes.
as number one bestseller type thing.
Exactly.
Like you say, it doesn't create the best. The best don't rise to the top. The people with the most money rise to the
That's right.
top. I'd love to talk to you about, because I know you do some work with women in Web3, and I know you're
Mm-hmm.
very passionate about more women getting into the space. So I'd love to kind of talk about that a little bit, and maybe some of the amazing women you've seen, and where you think how women are coming into this space. Are they staying? If not, why? I'd
Mm-hmm.
really love to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I have met some incredible women in the space for sure, and some of them have gone all the way up to the very top. So Solana Foundation is led by an incredible woman. Near Foundation for many years was led by Marique Flamand, incredible woman who I mentioned before, actually several times. And she cut her teeth at Circle. And there are a few promising people that are sticking in for the long haul. What I'm finding is that a lot of people are also leaving
Mm,
the industry, and I think they just get a bit overwhelmed by the tech bro mentality. There
mm.
are a lot of crypto men, and it can be a bit alienating. You can go to some of these events and there's just a lot of crypto bros. So
Do
how
you
do you
find
get
that
through that?
as a woman?
Well, the thing is, I'm older now, so I've been working in PR and media for decades.
Mm,
So I don't really care now. That's the
okay.
beauty of getting
Yeah.
older. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I've been here before.
Yeah.
But for someone who's just starting their journey, I can imagine it's really alienating. And I guess if you really want to get into it and get to the top, you've got to navigate all the politics and all the cliques. There's a lot of what we call tribalism in
Mm,
this sector. So you either
yeah.
like Ethereum or you don't, and you
Yeah.
shut out, or Cardano or this or that. So it's, I think, as we said, things are maturing, and the language we're using more now is that of collaboration, which is great, but we still have a way to go before that actually happens. So I do think that there's probably that cliquey tribalism that probably is very difficult to
Mm,
navigate through. But having said that, I am seeing amazing women. Coindesk just produced a list of the most formidable women in Web3. They had a great party for them in Paris.
amazing.
And I had some amazing women that I know on that list. And I'm just seeing like real ball breakers,
Yeah.
incredibly smart women.
Yeah.
And the ones that I think do really well are those that have either come from a tech background and they really understand it and they're very confident in their knowledge, or they've had some kind of experience in the past in the corporate
Okay.
world and they have developed skills and knowledge that really helps them and gives them that gravitas when they walk into a room and they really know
Mm,
what they're doing. And I'm very hopeful that we will get more people into the sector, more women, and
yeah.
that they stick and they stay.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? Not just coming in and
Mm-hmm.
then leaving, and you're probably right. If you look at, some of the core projects, in Ethereum was, a kind of load of crypto bro man in a room, or
Yeah,
boys or
yeah.
whatever,
Yeah. They're very young, yeah.
building something, and then those boys, men split out and they do others, and then you do have that very much a load of geeky coder kind of men in a room, and I can understand as a female trying to break into that. It probably is. It does feel daunting. It probably
Mm-hmm.
feels like you don't fit.
That's right.
Um, but now, like you say, in a maturing space where we're seeing a lot of these organizations, kind of maturing as businesses as well. it doesn't matter in one sense whether you're a tech bro or not. What matters is, are you the right person for the job?
Exactly.
And if you're the right person for the job, it doesn't. And that's my view on these things. Is I don't feel like a woman should get a job or a man should get a job. I feel the right person should get the
Exactly.
job, whichever they are.
Exactly.
And if they're a woman, fantastic, But if they're a man, fantastic, The right person that should do that. But that's the key, I think, like you say, is the maturity of the space and seeing that.
Yes, absolutely. And I also find that the most successful projects have been led with a diverse team. So we mentioned Solana. They've got amazing brand awareness. I know they've put a lot of money into the marketing, but they've hired incredible people. And they do have senior women. And within that organization, you also have Input Output, which is the engineering firm that Charles Hoskinson set up. He is the co-founder of Ethereum and the founder of Cardano. So two top 10 blockchains. He's an incredible character. His president's a woman, and Tamara Hassan, and he's got a really great team behind him, and he's got a lot of diversity, and they're going from strength to strength. So I am seeing those who take on, and when I say diversity, it's not just through a gender lens. It's just people from very different backgrounds. I just find that they're the ones that seem to do very well. Much like what happened in the fintech sector, too. I found that the companies that really, really rose the ranks and did amazing work had an eclectic mix of people.
Do you think that's just because people resonate more with them than, in the nicest way, some stuffy banker from the city?
Maybe. I just think the diversity of their teams reflected the diverse population they aimed to serve. So they had a better understanding of what consumers need. And I think that's super important. I don't know if we have time for one anecdotal story, but I remember going into a pitch with a startup, and they were trying to basically provide a service whereby people could access their salary sooner instead of having to wait until the end of the month.
Yep.
And I found that really interesting. I said, well, how would that work in the UK? And apparently they said, just by asking that question, you're calling out your privilege, because a lot of people don't have overdrafts. Okay. Only people who can and have good salaries qualify for overdrafts, but people who are underbanked don't have overdrafts.
Yeah.
And she told me this story about she lived in North London, and she also volunteered at the food bank. She goes, half of the people that were accessing the food bank were nurses. And that just broke my heart. I said, nurses? She goes, yes. So they were trying to develop this service for NHS workers to give them the chance to access their salaries early on. I just thought, okay, you see, this is why we need diversity of thought, because I didn't know anything about this overdraft conundrum. I didn't know that there were so many people that are really struggling to pay their bills, and waiting a whole month for your salary is not fit for purpose for millions of people in the UK.
Yeah, it's a funny. It's not funny, but it's a super interesting point where, and I talk to people, but clients as well, where they're maybe on the non-crypto side, where they're going through a tough period, especially if things for whatever reason have gone wrong and they can't access borrowing or lending because their business isn't great.
Crazy.
But the whole point of if I've got £1 million in the bank, I don't need an overdraft. In the grand scheme of things, if
I've got access to one.
Exactly. But if I've got £500 in the bank, I might need an overdraft to help cover bits and pieces, but I can't access one because my credit's not good enough, or my business is, it's a very, very strange kind of dynamic in that sense, isn't it? That we don't really think about, because those of us that are able to have one maybe don't need it, and those of us that need it can't get one. So
it's expensive to be poor, as they say, and that's what fintech was trying to address. And there are some amazing companies that are trying to do that, and hopefully Web3 as well.
For sure. Yeah, cool. Just on the last part, I just want to touch on trust and credibility just quickly. That's something I think that is definitely increased, but is that something that you found that founders and crypto projects have had to kind of spend specific time on building that trust with, if you like, the outside world, and that it isn't just some big space full of scams, it is an opportunity?
Yes, they have spent a lot of time and resources, but not all of them really care about it. Okay. I mean, I have to say that half of the sector, you've got these nefarious, they are nefarious, but let's just call it out for what it is. They're just there to make a few bucks, or many bucks, and they're in it for the short haul. Then you've got incredible entrepreneurs that are in it for the long haul, and those are the people that I work with, and those are the people that are working with the regulators, with the policymakers, with governments to ensure that there is a legitimate framework to operate in, and they can deliver services that are relevant to everyone, that keeps consumers safe, and are shaping a future of finance that will be beneficial to anyone, anywhere. And that's what I'm hopeful for. And these are the companies that I'm really, really lucky to be working with.
And I guess if you're building something that is legitimate, you don't need to worry about proving trust, because the proof is in the pudding, as it were. So
exactly.
Georgia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really,
it's been a pleasure.
Really great conversation. I've really enjoyed. I mean, we could go on. I'm
could
sure
go
for hours
on.
and hours and hours. But
Yes.
for anyone that's kind of looking to find more about you, we'll obviously link anything in the show notes. But where can they find you and what you guys do?
LinkedIn is probably the best, or our website. We do need to ramp that up a bit, I'm afraid. We're just too busy supporting our clients.
Yeah.
But ecologymedia.co.uk, based in London. But as I said, we've got people around the world supporting us, and we're here to help if you've got a good Web3 company and
Amazing.
It's a force for good. We only want to work with good people doing good work.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.